It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce this morning's speaker to you, our very own Dean of the Terry College of Business, Dr. Dean Ben Ayers. Prior to his appointment as Dean in 2014, he served as Director of the Terry College's highly regarded Tull School of Accounting for 9 years. He also holds the Earl Davis Chair in Taxation. Under his leadership, the college recently closed a successful Building Terry campaign, raising a staggering $121 million to support faculty, programs, and facilities, and most importantly, exceeding the campaign goal by more than $30 million. So, very impressive. Dean Ayers is an exceptional scholar and teacher. He's received 11 teaching awards at the school, college, and university levels. He was recently recognized as being in the top 5% of the most productive accounting researchers over the past 50 years. He's been actively involved in the American Taxation Association and American Accounting Association and has received national research awards from both. He holds a PhD from the University of Texas, Austin. He and his wife, Marilyn, reside in Athens. They have 3 children, Margaret Lindley, Georgia, and Benjamin, and a dog, Blue. So please join me in welcoming this morning's speaker and all of our very good friend, Dean Ben Ayers.
On. I'm going to use the mic because I like to move in speaking. So are we on? Perfect. So Zach, thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate everybody being here today. I'm used to speaking in hour and 15-minute increments, and so we did start a couple minutes late, Zach, so we may have to keep the group a little bit late today. So I'm going to do things kind of throughout the presentation to talk a little bit about some of my life experiences and how that has shaped my present and kind of what our future is for the Terry College. At the end of our talk, I'll talk a little bit as to where we currently stand at the college and some things that we're working on. But over several life experiences, I really have come to understand the impact that each of our individual paths, how that shapes what we're doing today and the impact of that, what we'll be able to accomplish in the future. And that is, from a Terry College perspective, incredibly important because what we do today as a college will help shape the future for the lives of thousands and thousands of undergraduate and graduate students. So it's for us both a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous responsibility. And so what I wanted to do today is share some of the things from my life that has kind of shaped my perspective and how it kind of intertwines with some of the things that we do on campus in our academic programs, but also outside of that to help prepare our students. I've been serving as dean now for a little over a year, and I've served as the director of the School of Accounting for 9 years before that. So I have worked a lot on mastering administrative decisions, and so it's taken a while. I shared this at our beginning of the year faculty and staff meeting of the process of when you have tough decisions, and I said, now you can choose to determine where I am in that picture. And I didn't say, and everybody can come to their own conclusion regarding that, but that's you do face difficult decisions in administration, in college administration, but the decisions that you make are also incredibly important. So let me tell you a little bit about myself and some early things that kind of shape who I am, and this is really, I think all of us, we evolve over time, but fundamentally there is a core that influences your life throughout your life. So some things about me personally. So the 3 lights here. I grew up in a small town a little more than an hour from Atlanta, just across the state line in Alabama. And the 3 lights is that I grew up in a town that had 3 red lights. And so what that means is when I was really, really young, my parents had a captive audience, that there wasn't a lot that we could actually do outside of their watchful eyes. And so it gave them ability to kind of shape who I am as a person. And some things that were important at that time and still important to me that have really shaped who I am as an individual: faith, family, hard work, motivation, education, and then also physical health, physical activity. And each of those things kind of intertwine throughout my life. But growing up, small town, great town, captive audience, those were things that really kind of helped shape who I was as a young person. Regarding the hard work piece of this, and this is has really played an incredible role in my life. My life changed when I turned 9 years old. I remember the summer of 1974. I was introduced to a snapper lawnmower that had a Briggs & Stratton engine that would crank most of the time, but not all the time. It could take a punch or a kick. And at that age, I started working, and I worked in the summers. And the reason for that was there were life lessons along the way of, regardless of whatever you're doing, you need to do your very, very best. And so cutting grass with a nice push mower was an easy way to determine every day, every hour, if I was hitting the mark or not. And so I also learned about management at that point as well, because my manager, my father, had a lot of oversight. And so he would drive by, every time I cut a yard, he would drive by and make sure that I represented the Ayers family appropriately. And now, as a manager, he also believed in corporal punishment. And I can tell you as dean of the Terry College, I'm not using that method of management, but he did, and he used it quite effectively. But that was an important part. And so beginning age 9, every summer, my life of leisure was over, and I was taught to work in manual labor jobs. And that really shaped me as I moved forward, and also understanding the importance of education and the role that it plays in providing a better life. I put this up on Labor Day just because I will tell you, as a child, I hated Labor Day, because for us, Labor Day was manual labor day. And so we really worked as a family outside. And again, the part of that was no free meals, no free rides, that we were expected to work and develop a work ethic. One of the other things of early life lessons, which has really been helpful, is this learning to anticipate. And so a little bit more about my parents. Both of my parents were lifelong educators. And so my dad was superintendent of education for many years, director of vocational school. My mom was a psychology teacher and counselor. So I had a lot of oversight when I was in high school especially. They both also worked second jobs. And so my mom taught junior college. My dad had a business that repaired automobiles. And so I worked a lot of times in the evenings as a high school student with my dad. And one of the things I learned from that is how to anticipate. What's the next thing? So I spent hours literally of holding a flashlight as he was doing something to anticipate what the next move will be. And in business and thinking about in life of how you anticipate what's coming up next. And then as either a student or someone who is a new manager or a staff level person, what should you be anticipating, what skill set? A great example of this, I remember when I was 14, and so I was a late bloomer. That was the year that I learned how to drive a car. In rural Alabama, 14 was the age where you started to drive. I remember the day that I was taught how to drive. We had an old Army Jeep, and the day that I was taught, I had no idea that that was going to be the day. But my dad said, okay, we're going to go somewhere, so you're going to drive today. And I sat in the driver's seat and I said, Dad, I don't actually know how to drive. And his response was kind of consistent with the persona is, what do you mean you don't know how to drive? You've been watching me for 14 years. And so I learned, great life lesson, that there are things that I know that I'm going to be doing coming up. And we have students in our classes that they know what their profession is going to be. So they should think in advance, what is the skill set? And that really stuck in my mind as to being able to anticipate, to prepare yourself for things at least that you know that you're going to do. Early on in life, as I mentioned, and this is a good example of how we are influenced by things indirectly that you may not actually know that you're influenced. And so environment is really important. As I mentioned, both of my parents were educators. And I saw the tremendous impact that they had on their community, their investment in others, and how that paid tremendous dividends in the lives of others. And so that's the environment that I grew up in. That didn't really resonate with me until later in life, but that experience really has helped shape what my role is and what I want my role to be in a leadership position at the University of Georgia. So, moving past early life, my undergraduate institution, which was not named, thank you, Zach, and so we'll keep that anonymous today. But I will tell you that I was a pre-med major until the second day of orientation. And I realized that on the second day that I was an accountant. And I loved it. I tell you, I love accounting. And what I learned from that was that in choosing a career, there are three incredible parts of that you know that you've made a good choice. And so those parts are, is it something that is consistent with your skill set? And so are you choosing a career that naturally it's something that you can do? Is it something that where you can earn a living that's consistent with what your expectations are? And that can vary. And then the last thing is it something that you enjoy? And if you can have a career that meets those three things, then likely you're going to have a career that is very fulfilling. And for me, I really enjoyed the accounting that's consistent with my mindset, and that was a great career for me. That also explains why I'm not a professional golfer. And the reason for that is that it's definitely a career where you can earn a living. I really enjoy it, but unfortunately it's not consistent with my skill set. And Craig knows that because he's played golf with me before. And that's something, that type of advice is something that I share with pretty consistently with students, because when we get students either in undergrads or masters, they're making decisions about what they want to do in life. And being able to counsel and to think about what do you want to achieve and what is realistic with what you want to, what you enjoy, and also what is your fundamental skill set, what is your passion. Another life lesson, which was a little bit on the tough side, but so I went through undergrad, I went straight through. So I finished in 3 years. My older brother finished in 2.5 years. And I remember my second summer. So I had been going to school straight through, taking full load, and probably the first week of class, I was in taking 2 courses. I can remember the courses, I won't name the professors. And I really was not enthused about what I was doing. The quality of instruction was not what I liked. I was quite frankly burned out. So I remember this vividly like it was yesterday. So I called my dad about 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and said, Dad, I'm in school, I'm burned out, I think I want to come home for the summer. And his response was, very even keel, was, "That'll be great. I'll have you a construction job by Monday." Now, to rewind that a bit, after I finished my grass cutting career, I moved on and I was working construction. And so when he said that, I was thinking back to the summers in early 1980, I'm not sure which summer it was, when there was record heat waves, and I remember this on a Friday, that I was literally shoveling asphalt for 12 hours in 90+ degree temperatures. So I thought about that for about 5 minutes. And at the time, I was living in an apartment, had a pool. My only responsibility was to go to class, 2 classes a day, 5 days a week. And the rest of that, I could study, go to the pool, and have a good social life. So I thought about that for about 5 minutes, enough, to give him time to hang up the phone. And I called him back and I said, "Dad, I think I can tough it out." And his response was, "Well, okay, it's your choice, whichever one you want to do." Now, I will tell you that lesson really, there was a lesson in that. And the lesson, which is extremely important for me today, I think it's an important life lesson, is that we all need to be able to distinguish between when times are difficult and when times are not. And I can tell you, with the Terry College in my current role, there aren't difficult days. It is a privilege in what I'm doing. And so part of my background was to give me life experiences that were challenging in order to prepare me to say, well, hey, I got this. We can handle this. And so that was his way of saying, look, this is not difficult. You can handle it. And more importantly, it is a privilege to be in the situation that I was, because there are a lot of people that weren't doing that. So moving on, after I graduated and I earned a master's in tax, I worked in public accounting. And it was a great career. And we've got a very successful accounting program, master's program, and a lot of opportunity of working with individuals that are very, very smart, and that you are working with great companies, you've got great coworkers, and I learned a lot of things from that experience. Now, one of the things that I learned, which is important to our students on campus today and in Atlanta, is the notion of reinventing yourself. That when you graduate from a program, you're going to graduate with a great skill set, technical skill set, broad-based skill set, business skills. But an important life lesson is that we always need to be able to reinvent ourselves. Business is constantly changing. So the only thing that's constant is that it's changing. And so being able to adapt to new situations, get up to speed really quickly, because in public accounting, your clients expect that, is an important skill set. And that is another thing that's helped shape my life, and also in the education that we provide on campus, being ready to take advantage of change, thinking about how change fundamentally impacts business. Another thing that has really helped me in my role in serving in a leadership position was what I would call an interesting experiment. So I went on to the University of Texas, earned my doctorate there, and notice I always say earned. So you're never given a degree, you earn it through hard work. But in that role, trained as someone who does research, and thinking about experiments. And so in public accounting, I had probably one of the best lessons in leadership that I could ever have. And part of what that lesson was, and here's the experiment that I realized early on. So I had the opportunity to work with different managers. And in that role, I found myself in one situation, one environment. I loved it. I loved who I was working for. I loved the work. It was great. And I was motivated to achieve as much as I possibly can, to really go beyond not only for myself, because I didn't want to disappoint who I was working for. Now, I also had the opportunity to work for another manager, and I hated what I was doing. Now, if you think about that from an experiment of here you are, that I am making the same compensation, holding compensation constant. I'm doing the same work, same office, same location, same company. Love it, hate it. That point is when I really realize, how do you compete? How do you compete when you're in a people business? And compensation is important, so you've got to be competitive. What you do is important, but the culture is so incredibly important. And that was a life lesson that really has shaped how I view what we are working on in Terry College, and also as we talk to students about competitive advantage and how you achieve and outcompete, the role of culture is so incredibly important. Other things, and these are things, life lessons, that again kind of relate to things that we're doing in the classroom and some of the discussions we have with students outside of class. So leaving comfort. Leaving public accounting, I left a career of comfort. Not that it was easy, it was not. But I had a clear path, and I could map what I was gonna do today, in 2 years, 5 years, it was mapped out. And so there was a lot of comfort in that. And so I remember when I was contemplating a change to go, that I called my brother and said, hey, I'm thinking about this particular opportunity, which was a different, very different field. And I worked for, and ultimately accepted a job for an HMO, negotiating contracts. And his advice was, I can't tell you whether you should take this position or not. You are at a fork in the road. All I can tell you is that there's going to be another one down the line. And the life lesson there is that we all face important life decisions, but they are decisions, one, and there'll be a lot of those. So you've got to make the most informed decision that you can and move forward. And the company work there is that if you achieve and you work hard, then you'll have opportunities to go back on this path if that's ultimately the right thing to do. And that's something in thinking about career discussions with students, we talk a lot about. Ultimately, what do you want to do in life, and realize that it's a journey, multiple decisions along the way. Another lesson that is really stressed, that I stress, when I changed careers. So I went from public accounting and I went into work for HMO. I'll tell you a little bit of what I did is I worked, so I was negotiating contracts, capitation arrangements, where basically we're shifting the risk from the HMO to the healthcare provider. And so we were paying flat fees to healthcare providers. And I was negotiating, trying to get a favorable deal for the HMO, but also a deal that worked for healthcare providers as well. After about 3 or 4 or 5 months working for the company, great company, privately held, fat, really growing. This is early 1990s, we were in a recession, and it was a unique environment. I realized that the contracts that I was negotiating, and that had been negotiated in the past, that the computer system actually was not able to properly handle those claims. So what was happening was we would go out and pay providers up front a flat fee. Our participants, our members, would then go and use services, and then the provider would send a bill to the HMO, and we would pay it. And so we were double paying. And so we were losing hundreds of $1,000s, millions of dollars, because great contracts over here, but if your claim system is not set up properly, then you're actually losing money by doing that. So I realized that and was appointed a task force that we need to change this. In my undergraduate, when I started, we had to take a core curriculum that either focused on computer language or on foreign language. I had French when I was in high school, and I did not want to take French again. Spanish was not what it is today, so I might change my choice if I was going to making that now. But I chose to take computer classes. I took Fortran, COBOL as electives, and that experience and my motivation to learn as much as I could and also achieve the grade that I wanted really helped me, because I actually understood how computers work and computer logic. And so me being on the front end, being able to understand how the contracts were structured, allowed me to interface with our computer programmers to say, this is all you need to do. Here are the member numbers, boom, here are the CPT codes, there, and you've got it. And that's it. It saved the company hundreds of $1,000s, and then I received a nice bonus, and so it was a win for everybody. Now, the life lesson here is, I was an accounting major when I was an undergrad. And so I could have had tunnel vision that I know that what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Because I wanted to make sure that I had a portfolio of grades that made sense, I took the time in each of my courses to learn as much as I can. The life lesson for our students is everybody needs to graduate. We all need a functional skill set so that we can add value. It's hard to interpret or understand in the future what that skill set will be. So when you're at a university, undergrad, master's program, or coming back, making the most out of the core business classes, those electives, because ultimately they may prove to be very, very useful. It was at that point where I really realized what my life's passion was. And so reversing back to the impact of my parents and really what I wanted to achieve in my life. And I'll tell you what my life passion is. I love accounting, I love business, but really what my life passion is impact, paying it forward, learning, improving, sharing, the impact on others. And so that's what, ultimately I viewed what the Ayers family business was. And that we're doing it in a certain way with respect to providing students with an outstanding business education. But ultimately what I viewed as my purpose was to make a difference. In choosing a PhD program, I went to the University of Texas, which is a highly regarded business school and accounting program. I chose that with purpose. And the reason why I chose that, which I think also is, again, a life lesson, is I did not want to be limited by my circumstances or by my environment. I understood that I had my own personal limitations, and we all have our own personal limitations, but I didn't want to be limited by that choice. And I was not. And ultimately, I got my dream job. That's part of what our vision is for Lettieri College, of not being a source of limitations, of opening doors for students, preparing them for success, and that you can come to Lettieri College and go anywhere. And that is an important mindset of, I think that we all need to have, of no limitations. And how do we achieve that? And also part of this, to be successful as in academia, you've got to be a self-starter, because there are long time periods where evaluations are annually, tenure promotion is 5 or 6 years, and so really fine-tune the process of setting goals, what it takes to be successful. University of Georgia, and so when I finished my graduate work, I did find my dream job. And so being at the University of Georgia, classic college town, Athens, great state university. I can remember literally the fall that I came in June, but the fall semester, and I agree with Zach about the energy of the fall, it was like I was walking on air. That literally, this is a gorgeous campus, and I've got great colleagues and wonderful students. What could be better? I served for 9 years as director, and some things that we really focused on in the Tull School, ultimately creating value for our students. And so making sure that what we do on campus ties directly to value in the marketplace. heavily engaged with our employers and our alumni because the value that creates for our students, both in network and in opportunities. Really focused on outcomes, and so placement is very, very important. And so, you know, our MAC program has placement close to 100% every year, so high 90s. That's an objective measure of success. We didn't focus on rankings. Rankings are the outcome of hard work and objective success. They're not the end result, they're a byproduct of success. CPA pass rates, very proud of those. Again, that's an objective measure. And from that standpoint, I've had questions, you know, how do you achieve that on campus? It's not to teaching to the exam. It's through hard work and preparing students with that basic knowledge that, oh, by the way, if you go through the program successfully, you're going to pass the CPA exam. And the vast majority of our students do it on the first time. Scholarship is incredibly important. So recognizing the role that having highly gifted, motivated faculty and the importance of that in attracting and retaining. And then big picture, three items: people, cultural, resources. Having the right people in place, the right culture that fosters success, and then the resources that allow people to be successful. Through all of those things, we've had tremendous growth. And so now our MAC program, I think this year we have 170 plus students. We're approximately double in size that we were not too long ago. And a lot of growth and a lot of success by trying to do things the right way. I've served now as dean for a little over a year, and I can tell you it is a privilege. It's not necessarily easy, but it's a privilege. And it's a privilege because of all the people I get to work with, the great students that we have, and the opportunities that we have to make a difference. Some things, kind of big picture things based on life lessons of how this is impacting what we're doing on campus. So as I mentioned, people, culture, resources. And so from a management perspective, and we'll talk a little bit about some things on campus that we're doing, but from a management perspective, those three things will solve about 90 to 95% of the issues that we face. Or more importantly, those three things will allow you to deliver on the opportunities that are there, and then the rest of the 5% you can handle if you've got people, culture, and the right resources. Every student is important. And so one of the things that I believe is unique with the Terry College is we have a lot of high-touch programs that if you come to the Terry College for undergraduate, master's, there are a lot of opportunities to individualize your education. And a lot of ways of thinking about how you demonstrate that. And one of the ways that I used to do this in the classroom was by the beginning of the second class, I knew every student's name. And I would call them by name coming into the class, and I would call them by name throughout. And now sometimes that would freak students out. So imagine it as, hey, you come into class, it's the second day, and you missed the first day, and the instructor calls you by name. But it's an important message of saying, you are important to me. And there are expectations associated with it. And so, want you to be successful, here to help you to be successful. Every student is different, but they're all important. Also, in things of thinking about how we operate, thinking about opportunities. So focusing more on things that we should be doing as opposed to what we can do. And so that frees us to think about how can we improve the opportunities for our students? How do we improve the education? And that is the mindset. And then ultimately, accountability, economic impact, success of our students. The university has spent a good bit of time the past year going through and demonstrating economic impact, the impact that the University of Georgia has on the state of Georgia. Now, we have impact across the nation and across the globe, but because we are a state university, that we are supported by the state of Georgia, it's important for us to demonstrate economic impact. The university's annual economic impact exceeds $4 billion a year. The Terry College piece of that is close to $1 billion. It's $900 million plus every year. And so that is something to be proud of. It's something to build upon, and that is the opportunity for the college, is to recognize the role that we play in driving economic success in our state and beyond. So I wanted to share some of the things, just where we are currently, and I'm not going to spend much time on this because I will provide at least some time for questions. I don't think about these daily, and quite frankly, rankings can get under my skin because I really focus on what we're doing day to day to, what I say, hit the mark. But when you look at rankings, and this is a subset of rankings across programs, what you see there is that the Terry College is consistently recognized as one of the nation's best business schools. And it's not limited to one program, it's not limited to one department, that it is across the board. And that gets to every student is important, and there are opportunities across programs and across departments. This slide here relates to more of the quality of our faculty, and it's not in large font. But the takeaway is very similar. You look at the numbers there, and this is something that I shared approximately a year ago with our faculty and staff to send a message internally as to who we are. And that is, again, consistency and quality across programs and across faculty. That helps drive what our strategy is moving forward. We're not a school or a college that is adapting a new strategy, that we need to be known for this. We need to be known for delivering an outstanding business education, that you come to the Terry College and you are not limited. We provide you the very best education, and we open doors for you. So let me tell you some of the key initiatives, and there's a lot of detail related to this. I'm not going to go through all of this. But here are some things as to the future for us. And you could easily look at the previous slides and say, hey, the college is rocking along, let's just coast. It couldn't be further from the truth. That we are in a position of tremendous momentum. And so what we're thinking about is, how do we provide a better experience for our students? How do we enhance our programs? How do we expand the opportunities for the graduates of the Terry College? So the first thing, obviously, is the business learning community. And so we will dedicate Correll Hall tomorrow, which is the building on the far left. It's up and running. We've got graduate classes. All of our graduate classes in Athens are in Correll Hall. And we've got undergraduate classes. And then also tomorrow, we're going to break ground on phase 2. And in the center of this, the center building here is Amos Hall. And then we've got the buildings on the left and right that have not yet been named. Our undergraduate programs will be housed in phase 2. Amos Hall being, that's named after Dan Amos. And then Correll Hall, obviously, after Ada Lee and Pete Correll. The amount of activity on campus with alumni and employers is incredible, and it's very, very important. Board service, employer of the day. We have employers every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the year. We'll have an employer of the day. Currently in Sanford Hall, but will soon be in Amos Hall. To talk to our students about opportunities. And that has changed, and it's had a huge impact on us. And so one of the things that you can do is, if you're hiring, hire Terry College, and you will not be disappointed. A lot of different events, and obviously Terry Third Thursday, you can check that off the list because you're here today. We have an economic outlook that'll be in December in Atlanta and throughout the state, and where we provide a forecast of what we believe the economy will look like within the state, locally as well, across the state, and nationally. And that's prepared for the Seelig, by the Seelig Center, and I deliver those across the state, and those are great events for us. And then a number of other events that allow you to either be engaged with our students or with other alums or other business leaders. The last thing, obviously, you know that time and talent, so it has to be treasure is the next one. And so your support makes a difference. We are, as I've mentioned, an exciting time at the Terry College, and we're at the point with brand new facilities, with programs that are doing very well. The incremental impact of our support from alumni, employers, and other business leaders is tremendous. I know it, I've lived it. In my role previously in the director of the School of Accounting, I saw the impact of the incremental support. It gave us the opportunity to grow a master's program when we were in a deep recession. For the college, it can have the same or more impact. And so a lot of different ways. We refer to what we're doing on campus as the Terry Edge. Our goal is to provide our students an edge in their career, an advantage. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. Now, I've talked a number of those, but most importantly is what we're trying to do, unique experiences, high value that translates into career and life success. And so you can play a role in that. Terry Excellence Fund is our annual fund. Those are incredibly important. And as I mentioned, we've got 4 buildings. And so I've got to go back to Athens, but if we want to talk buildings, I'll stay here the rest of the day. So thank you for your time. I'll open up if we have questions. I didn't talk an hour and 15, but I came close. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to address those.
You mentioned culture being a really important part of the Terry College. So what would you say are the main components of a successful culture and an ideal culture? And would you say that we're there here now, or do you see main areas for improvement?
That's a good question. So in order to have a great culture, it ties to people, and it's really, common purpose. And with respect to academia, here's how I've kind of addressed that and thinking about that. And this is from a faculty perspective because of the important role that they play in the lives of our students. Most people chose academia as a career because of a love for teaching and also for research. And so one of the things related to the culture of this is that how do you tap into that? Obviously you can tap into that in the classroom, but to have a culture that fosters excellence, you need to have a group that is investing in others. And for me personally, in thinking about culture and what drives success is, are you a person that makes everybody around you better or not? And the true value is where you could be individually productive, but if that productivity, whether it's in the classroom or research, if that is in a silo and that's not having impact beyond, it's limited. And so how to tap into that in academia is getting to what is your purpose, and thinking about if your purpose is because you love teaching, what's the best way of having impact? You've got an opportunity to mentor junior faculty. That's teaching. That's in providing them the skill sets so they can be successful. And so that's part of the notion of how do you build a culture. I'll give you an example of knowing that how I knew that we were on the right track when I served as the director of the School of Accounting. And fortunately, and to do that, you've got to have leadership, and it's not solely the dean, you've got to have a core group of leaders. Fortunate to work with senior faculty that really understood that. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, I can don't remember the time of the day, but it was late in the afternoon, and actually it had been one of those days that was more challenging. But at towards the end of the day, I got an email from one of our junior faculty, so assistant professor, saying, I just got an acceptance to a publication in XYZ journal. And from the life of a faculty member, that's pretty important, because that's the difference of keeping your job and not keeping your job. And so those increments are very important, and also relates to your market value. What was important from that was there was one sentence on, hey, I just got this acceptance here, wanted to let you know. The remainder of the email was discussing everybody that had helped her in the process. And when I realized that the people that she was naming was not our senior faculty, they were mentioning some, but it was the group in the middle, I realized we got it. That this notion of paying it forward is now a part of our DNA. So I think as a college, we have the culture, you can always improve upon that, but that's when you know that you have it. But fundamentally is, are you making the place better? And selfishly, from a rational decision is, that's the right thing to do to have your own market value as well. But thinking about that, what drives people in our profession, why, what ultimately gets at the root of what they're looking to accomplish.
You mentioned that innovation and reinventing yourself is part of your own personal success. And as a guy who graduated from the University of Georgia in 1990, I had to make other decisions along the way to go to other colleges and universities to expand my career because Georgia just didn't have any MBA programs. They didn't have things along the way. And I'm wondering, with the speed at which society continues to change and other organizations come in to try to pick off the talent that's available, what kind of things are you thinking about in terms of innovation that would lead to attracting talent and building talent for the University of Georgia?
Within scholarship,
Well, within scholarship, within programs for the community, enhancing things beyond maybe an MBA program. I mean, there's DBA programs that other people are offering. There's things that I think people are hitting in the market that the Terry College of Business is not.
yeah, so one of the things and I'll kind of do this a couple of different ways. Fundamentally thinking about change is an important part of the education process. Taylor's actually a student in my class, and she has a paper review Friday by midnight. And one of the exercises that we do in that class is to think about a business that's successful 5 or 6 years ago, and then now, and to think about what drives the success. Why was it successful 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and is it successful now? And what were the factors? And that's part of the education standpoint of understanding change and what drives success and what doesn't drive success. With respect to attracting the right group, someone who has worked in academia for many, many years, I think this applies across businesses. You want to work for a company or a university that fundamentally wants you to be successful and that is providing that environment to help you be successful. And so for us being competitive, and I will say, last year we had a number of schools that tried to pick off our talent. And at some point, I feel like calling the deans at UVA and UNC, let's just start having joint programs because they were trying to hire. We only lost one faculty member last year that we had a chance to counter. But how you retain on that standpoint and the messaging on the people side, I meet every person that we're recruiting, every faculty member. So yesterday we had 2 in, and unless my schedule prevents otherwise, and partly is getting the right people there. So I think that there is a great story as to why someone would choose to invest their life pursuits at the University of Georgia. And it's a very compelling reason to do that. And I try to share that in my life experience. So from that standpoint, I think that we are very competitive. On the financial side, that is consistently a challenge for us. Now, with respect to other things on change, across all of our programs, we are looking at how what we're currently do, how does that map into market value? And that's through work with our faculty, it's work with individual advisory boards across, it's work with alums of give us feedback. With respect to expanding programs, we are carefully right now thinking about expanding our master's programs. And what you have to do in thinking about, and it's the same thing with any business, is that when you think about expanding, you think about how does this expansion, is it consistent with your core mission, core competencies, or not? How will this expansion impact what you're doing in your base operations? So we are at capacity in a lot of different dimensions. We've got 7,000 plus undergraduate students, freshmen through senior, that are either in the tier college or want to be, and we're at capacity in a lot of different dimensions. But the thought process for us is to think about core mission, core competencies, and how we work to expand that in a way that feeds back into quality of what we're doing and really fits. So we're careful, and I'm a data person, of thinking about how does this fit together, because what you don't want, what I don't want, we're not growing an empire. And for us, for me, the size of the college can be negotiable, but the quality is not. And so as we look to expand in ways that we believe are meaningful, that will create value to students and for the state of Georgia. And that's kind of what we've done in our process. Any other questions? We're almost out of time. Or is that it? I think that's it. Thank you so much for attending today.
All right. So Dean Ayers, thanks so much for your time. We know you have a few busy days, weeks, months ahead of you, and I think this morning's talk really reflects that. Thank you for all your hard work that we, as alumni, guests, or supporters, all participate in. We want to remind you that we've got you this token here from our local audience. Yeah, I think you probably have done one or two of these, but now you have your own, and you don't get that. So anyway, this
Thank
is
you.
for you.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks again.